Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing, man? Antonelli here.
Hey, what's up, guys? So we're going to have a little extension off of yesterday's video because there were some questions that you guys threw down bottom that I think are important to hit and just talk about the fastball in general. So yesterday we talked about the four-seam fastball and the effects of Magnus force and gravity force against the baseball as it travels through the air, and then what a proper four-seam grip looks like with the index and middle finger. So today, just an extension with the questions that you guys asked yesterday from JB on YouTube. He asked, what is a running fastball? If that's a four-seam fastball is what I depicted yesterday, then what exactly is a running fastball? And let's talk about the effects of that fastball grip as it's going through the air. So a running fastball is basically a fastball that tails. People will basically say if the fastball is running arm side, so if you're left-handed, if the ball goes right to left, or if you're right-handed, if the ball's traveling right or left to right, excuse me, that would be considered a running fastball. Anything from a right-hander's perspective that goes right to left, or from a left-hander's perspective that goes left to right, would be profiled more as a cutter as opposed to a running fastball or a sinker. And then some people will use different terminology, two-seam fastball, running fastball, sinker, different terminologies for the ball that runs towards your arm side. So if you're lefty, it's going to go towards the left. If you're right-handed, it's going to go towards the right, so your arm side. So a typical grip that people will use for a running fastball will be the two-seam grip. And a two-seam grip, I did talk about it yesterday a little bit, but two-seam grip is pretty standard. I'm basically going to go, let's see if you guys can see this, go up against the two horseshoes here and right there. Go right on top of the seam. Some guys will play around with it. Some guys will stagger their fingers this way or that way. I threw mine a little bit wide and on each side of the seam there. But there are different ways of doing it. The important part is how the ball is going to travel in the air and why we throw it in this fashion. So like I said yesterday, the four-seamer will travel this way, and the Magnus force in the air will push up against four different types of seams. On the two-seam look, the sinker or the running fastball, the air is going to have two seams that are really tight that's going to push up against it, and then a bunch of leather that it's going to have. Now, here's the big reason why it runs, and it typically will dip depending on how hard you throw the pitch itself. So a two-seam fastball, a running fastball, or a sinker is more than likely going to travel in this direction. We're basically, from an arm slot perspective, we're tilted. If this is a perfect true two-seamer here, we're tilting the axis this way or that way. So this way is left-handed, that way is right-handed. So we're tilting the axis of the baseball. So the baseball is actually traveling like this through the air. And every time the air pushes up against these two seams very quickly, boom, boom, it's going to start its fade in its direction, in its horizontal direction. For a left-hander like me, right to left. For a right-hander, it's going to go left to right. So every time it hits the seam, boom, boom, it's going to kick more towards your arm side. Now, since there's only two seams that are getting hit by the Magnus force, gravity is really going to play a big role in the two-seamer running fastball or sinker, where you have all of this leather it's traveling up against the air. Excuse me, you have all of this leather that is hitting the air as it's traveling, and it's only hitting these two seams. Gravity is actually going to play a bigger role by pushing down on the baseball on the leather, right? When the ball is going in a four-seam look, gravity plays less of an effect because when the wind or the air takes that bottom seam, it allows the baseball to stay up and on plane for a longer period of time. Now, the baseball is going to fight gravity no matter what, no matter the pitch. But when it has four seams traveling through the air like so, the air and the Magnus force is actually going to allow the baseball to stay up, and as opposed to it being pushed down. Now this way, the two-seam look sinker running fastball, it only has those two seams as opposed to four, and all of this leather that's traveling through the air is getting pushed down by gravity. So if I show you this going in this direction here, the ball is going to have two seams that it hits. Every time it hits those two seams, it's going to run towards my arm side. And every time the leather is going up against the Magnus force, gravity plays a bigger effect and pushes the ball down towards the earth. And that's basically how we get the run. Okay, this is a true two-seam look here, right there, and the ball is going to come out in that direction. If you are truly behind the baseball perfectly, it essentially is a little bit straighter. Gravity will still come into effect and the ball will dip. But if we tilt the axis and I'm throwing it from maybe a 3/4 slot, or even if I'm like a straight over the top guy here, most guys are still going to be somewhat tilting the axis of the baseball at release point, and the tilt of that baseball is going to allow the ball to run. So the more tilt of the axis that we have, the more run you're going to have on the ball, the more behind the baseball we are, and throwing it truly over the top or over the top of the baseball out in front into extension, the straighter it's going to be, and it's still going to have that nice little dip to it. Now the harder that we throw this pitch, so a guy like Dustin May throws this pitch like 99 miles an hour, the ball is going to freaking cruise horizontally. It's going to go left to right for me, right to left, or right to left for me, left to right for right-hander. Sorry, I got confused there. But the harder you throw it, the more horizontal movement you're going to have on the pitch and less vertical movement you're going to have on the pitch. The lesser you throw it in terms of velocity, you're going to have a nice little plane going this way for left-handers, that way for right-handers. So it's going to ride that plane downward vertically, and you're going to have more vertical movement on it with less velocity because it's traveling for a longer period of time in the air, as opposed to a 99-mile-an-hour fastball like Dustin May throws. He throws his sinker two-seam running fastball 99 miles an hour, has less time in the air between that 60 feet 6 inches, so it's really going to be really sharp horizontally because the seams are going to hit the air more often, so it stays up in the air longer. But since the seams are hitting the ball more often, it's going to horizontally move at a much faster rate and a much faster pace, so gravity has less of an effect on that particular pitch. I actually like these topics. I don't know what spawned me to just make that video. I appreciate the comments down bottom. There are a couple more questions from that video that I will also answer going forward. If you haven't seen the video, it'll be a card at the end of this video in particular, so go check that out. I hope this brought some value to you. Do me a favor, as always, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button down bottom, like, share, and comment, and I'll see everybody